Hey, it's Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, and welcome to Whiteboard Wednesday. Topic for today is the straight line strategy of looping. And what looping is, it's our objection handling strategy that allows you to take any of the common objections and use it as an opportunity to build more certainty in the mind of the prospect and then transition into a close without breaking rapport. Let me explain what I mean by that. In other words, when you start off in the sale, the beginning of the sale, the prospect is typically at a very low level of certainty when it comes to your product, right? They don't know that much about it. They maybe heard a little bit, but they're not as familiar as you are. They don't know all the great benefits, how awesome it is, how it will resolve all their pain. So they're relatively uncertain. And then throughout the sale, everything you say and everything you do is designed to increase your prospect's level of certainty. And that is really what the straight line represents. So watch. I'm a terrible artist, but this is your open, right? A straight line. This is your open. This is your close. I'll put an O here and a C here, right? We have the healthy boundaries above and below the line, which represents when you are in control of the sale, right? As opposed to out of control, where you're spiraling off into Pluto or your anus, talking about things that aren't relevant to the conversation. I'm assuming you know a little bit about the straight line here. If you don't, read up on it, okay? Because this is an advanced technique looping. Now watch what happens. At the beginning of the sale, I want you to imagine a continuum of certainty. So watch, we'll have a continuum of certainty. This is a 1 and a 10, straight line, a continuum. 1 means the client thinks your product is a total piece of crap. He hates it. It's the worst thing in the world. And a 10 means the prospect loves your product, thinks it's an awesome, the best thing since sliced bread, right? So obviously what you're trying to do here, as you move someone down the straight line from the open to the close, everything you say and everything you do is designed to increase your prospect's level of certainty to as close to a 10 as possible. After all, people buy when they're absolutely certain. When they're not that certain, they don't buy. Make sense? Okay, it's pretty logical, right? So watch what happens here. When you finish your initial presentation, right, you explain all the benefits of your product and so forth, right? You make your case why they should be buying now, right? And you ask for the order for the first time. That's typically right around here, about a third of the way down the straight line. Because there's still work to do. Probably they're not that certain at this point, right? So what they do is they hit you with an objection. Let me think about it. Let me call you back. Bad time of year. And what those represent is essentially a smokescreen for uncertainty. In other words, rather than coming clean with you and saying, Jordan, I just don't like your product, or I'm not that sure it's great, or not sure it works for me, they'll say, oh, it sounds good, let me think about it. So let me think about it, or let me call you back. It's a smokescreen. What you need to do is increase their level of certainty, which is why the typical objection handling strategies don't work. Because you'll start overcoming the prospect's objection. They say, let me think about it. You tell them all the reasons why they don't need to think about it. They say they want to call you back. You say, we don't really work on callbacks. They say they want to speak to their wife. You'll say, here's the reason why you don't need to speak to your wife. It's all bullshit. In other words, the objection itself is a smokescreen. So when you get caught up in that back and forth trying to overcome objections, so to speak, you break rapport and you blow the sale. So what we do with looping is instead of trying to overcome an objection, we essentially deflect it, which means we don't actually have to answer it head on, especially the first objection. And then what we do is we use it as an opportunity to essentially loop back into the sale, to the front half, and we represent more information about our product or our service to increase the prospect's level of certainty to an even much higher level on the certainty scale, hopefully to as close to a 10 as possible, right? And then we ask for the order again. So in other words, we use an objection as an opportunity to go back into presentation mode, loop back into presentation mode, and then give the prospect more information about our product and also ourselves, why they should do business with us, why they should trust our company. Those are the three, what we call in the straight line, the 3 10s, separate topic, right? So looping is the technique that we use after you get hit with that first objection, and now you have to close the deal. So what do? Well, what you need to do is you need to say, I hear what you're saying. This is in response to an objection, but let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? What you've done now is you essentially deflected the objection and you said, okay, I understand you want to think about it, but let me just ask you this. Do you like my product? Does it work for you? Do you see? Now, again, you have to change the language here to fill whatever it is you're selling. So you can easily modify this so it fits anything, right? And in the actual system I sell, we show all the modifications. But the point is, what you're doing is you're reframing the situation. They say, let me think about it. And you say, okay, I hear what you're saying, but let me ask you this. Do you like my product? Does it make sense to you? And when you do that, especially using that tonality, does it make sense? Do you like the idea, right? They'll say to you, yeah, it sounds pretty good. That's a typical answer you'll get, right? Now listen to my tonality. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Now let me ask you this. Is that a 10 on the certain scale? Yeah, it sounds pretty good. That's not a 10. That's like around a 5 or a 6 on the certain scale. A 10 would be, oh yeah, I love the idea. It sounds amazing. That's a 10. Or you might say, oh yeah, I really like your idea. That's an 8. Or, I think nah, it's not for me. That's a 2 or a 3, right? Or it's the biggest piece of shit ever. That's a 1. So in other words, when you ask someone, well, does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? You're finding out at that moment where they actually are in terms of their certainty. Are they really certain about your product? Or are they not so certain? Most of the time, you'll find that they're not so certain, which is why they're not buying. The objection is a knee-jerk reaction. It's a smoke screen they throw out there, so they don't have to get to what's really holding them back is they don't love the product, they don't trust you enough, and don't know about your company. So when we run a loop, as it's called, we will either deflect in the first one, answer this objection very quickly, but then we'll say, does it make sense to you? We loop back into the sale, and we give the prospect more information about why this product is or service is a perfect fit for them, what we can do for them ourselves over the long term, what our company can do for them that will stand by our product, great customer service. So we use objections as opportunities to build more certainty for each of the 3 10s. And then after we've done that, we will then transition back into a close and ask for the order again. In practice, by the way, not only is this so simple to do, but it is so wildly effective that when you start running loop after loop, because you can do this. Imagine every time you get an objection, you can run a new loop. You can say, I understand. Let's say someone says, I can't afford it. I say, listen, I understand money might be tight, okay, but let me say this. The true beauty is, and you loop back into the sale, and you essentially increase certainty for the product, increase certainty for yourself by saying things about yourself and your product, increase certainty for your company, and then what you'll find now is that when you ask for the order again, a second time or a third time, the objection either completely melts away and they'll buy, or they'll switch to a new objection. See, the objection itself is a smokescreen. What holds people back from not buying is a lack of certainty for these 3 10s. The first 10 is they must love your product. The second 10 is they must trust and connect with you. And the third 10 is they must trust and connect with the company that stands behind the product. Those are your 3 10s. When someone says, let me think about it, what they're saying is, I'm not certain about one or all of these things. Tell me more. Make me certain. So we use this looping strategy to keep going back and around, to keep giving them more and more information about our product, good or service, about ourselves, about our company. Might be a guarantee that we stand behind our product and so forth, whatever it might be. And as you do that, the prospects become more and more certain, and eventually they all start to buy somewhere around here. That's how looping works. Once you become even this much in terms of proficiency, just a little bit, you get amazing results with looping. And when you're great at it, you can get to that point where you can close anyone who's closable. All right, so that's the art of looping. It's a Whiteboard Wednesday. And again, now for those of you, I'm going to be going through this is just like the basics of looping, right? On Saturday morning, I'm doing another one of my live trainings. I did it last week, got great reviews, so I decided to do it again on Saturday morning, right? So you'll be getting an email from me about this, by the way, right? So on Saturday, we'll be going through the looping at a very high level for about an hour, 10 minutes. I'll be answering your questions. We'll be interacting. We'll be interacting with polling and stuff, which is really cool. And I'm going to go through looping and give you the actual language patterns for this as well. and show you how to implement it in any business or industry just like that. And it's so effective, right? And that's it. That's your Whiteboard Wednesday. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Saturday.